That's not the right music. We're gonna have to. It's okay. We'll get that in post.
What's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with that music.
It just isn't our music.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sitting Ovation, a podcast about who the interesting people who work in theater are, what they do, and why they do it. We're your hosts, Bailey Sheehan,
Elizabeth Miller,
and Matt Ferragasso.
We'd like to welcome you to our show, but before we get started, we'd like to take this opportunity to respectfully acknowledge that we are hosting this podcast from the traditional lands of the Lenni Lenape people, and we pay our respects to elders both past and present.
Today you'll be getting to know Becky Eshleman.
Thank you. Thank
you. Did I get that? Is
yes.
that okay?
2 brownie points.
Who is Becky? What does she do and why does she do it? I'll start us off with the first question.
Is this like a therapy session? Like,
it is. That's
who
all
is she? And why does she do what she does?
We're going to delve into this.
Oh my God.
No other.
May I lay on the couch for this one?
If you have one available, feel free.
Okay, great. You won't be able to see me.
It's okay. That'll cover up any of the mouth audio issues that we were having before.
Exactly.
So Becky, how did you get your start in theater? Was this always a passion for you? Is this something that you grew up doing? How did this all start?
I basically tripped into it, really. I took fine arts in college, took some fine arts. Loved the arts, so I went straight from college to finance. Seemed like a natural move for me.
I started in finance and then went to theater.
I don't know what happened there, but I took a little wrong turn, and 18, 20 years later, I stepped back into it. Somebody asked me I was unemployed at the time because I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. And somebody said, hey, do you want to come to State Theater with me and work this event? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Let's try it. So I drank the Kool-Aid.
Thank you so much again for being a guest on our show. So finance, and you had no previous theatrical experience, no fourth grade recitals, no high school plays, nothing like that?
So not many people know this, and I'm hoping not many people find out about this. But
we don't have that many listeners. It's fine.
Okay. So I'm at a good time, right? But in elementary school, I knew I couldn't sing. I knew I was tone deaf. So I knew I couldn't sing, but my mom wanted me to be in choir. So I did it. And I'm in choir, and I'm like, yeah, that person that's not getting along with everybody else is me. I know I can't sing. So I would mouth the words. But then I got kicked off because I couldn't sing. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was mouthing the words, so I wasn't actually singing. But then you kicked me out of choir. Do I acknowledge that I wasn't singing, or do I just walk out gracefully? So I walked out gracefully.
Okay. And your production career started very early, didn't it? Your directing, producing career?
Yes, that actually started early in my career. I'm not sure why that hasn't picked up faster than it has. When I was young, I was always the producer director at the children's basement school, little shows that you put on for the parents, you know? It's like, no, you have to come downstairs and watch this 2-hour stupid thing that we did.
And I accept cash.
And
right?
oh yeah, I definitely collected the cash, and I definitely set the price. I don't know if I shared the cash. I don't know if the actors didn't even knew that I
the talent.
Right. Thank you. I don't know if the talent, although that's got to be loose, right? Talent. It was my sister, my brother, my cousins. Yeah.
So what did you do at State Theater? What was your first, when your friend was come along with me, were you painting sets? Were you working the box office?
I basically just lugged stuff in and out. That was the State Theater. That was the first thing that I did, but somehow being in the theater, I just really enjoyed. So I got over the pushing the things. And if you've ever been backstage at State Theater, they used to have it where you had to climb up these narrow stairs to get up to the dressing room. So The new kid on the block got to do that.
You got to carry all the heavy stuff up and down the stairs.
And that's how you discovered your passion, of course.
I mean, it makes sense. It just segues right there, doesn't it? It's so obvious. I think we're kind of done here. I think the therapy section's good.
Yeah.
You're welcome. We
You accept cash.
but we want that cash, right? We'll take that. Yeah.
So that was actually the first time I stepped into that. But when, that wasn't the first big thing I did. But yeah.
Yeah, you did some freelance work before that, right? You worked around the state. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I worked around the state. Matt, you always have a great way of phrasing things. Yes, I did some
You made your
state work, statewide
circuit.
work. I did a circuit. If any relatives are listening, all clothes stayed on the whole time.
I have this way about me, apparently, where I phrase things.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that it had involved clothing. So I worked like out at Hershey. I worked in Philly. I worked up in Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, and of course locally at Cedar Crest, State Theater, Zoellner.
Cool. You did you ever collect any treasures along the way?
Maybe.
Again, that's my phrasing. Is that
maybe? But I was allowed to take it. Okay, so
okay?
just like, where are we going with this, Matt?
Okay.
Any fans that you might have taken from
Any fans that I might have come across?
I was gonna let you tell the story, but if you want me to tell your story,
that's okay. I can confess to the thievery part of my job.
That's part of the theater job. I feel like we all have a token.
I feel like we all have a token from
a show or two. Right?
That somebody said we could take, though, right?
100%.
Always.
Make up for the minimum wage.
Yeah. Minimum wage, take this big prop.
You get permission on always, and then you take it. That's just how.
Okay,
I don't want this set piece anymore. Here you go.
So speaking of that, though, Matt, like getting permission and then taking it. There was a show that we had, David Cassidy, that wanted a very special sandwich that we didn't have in catering. So we had to get this special sandwich on this china, carried over to Zoellner for David Cassidy. Kept it in the green room in the fridge. It was all like nobody eat that sandwich. He was saving it for after the show. But normally the crew just goes in and eats after lunch, and whatever's left over they eat. A couple crew members decided, like, yeah, that sandwich looks good.
Right, and thought nothing of it being like set aside, right? And just
or on china.
On china in the fridge, not in the chafing dishes. So speaking of walking away, that sandwich walked away, and that was not a happy.
How did David Cassidy feel about that?
Sort of burned into our minds, I think.
Did he? Yeah, well, did it not go well?
If somebody asks for something special on the rider, they kind of probably want it.
Right, and they're
otherwise they wouldn't ask special.
Do you remember what kind of sandwich it was?
No, but I can ask the two crew members, the seasoned crew members, what they remember. But
if you could text them right now,
I probably could get that answer.
I think I was sitting outside on the loading dock when that happened, and the crew members walked out, having finished the sandwich, just like coming up from the basement at that moment, like licking their fingers.
Oh, it was a good sandwich.
It was delicious.
And it was big because you don't want to bring a little itty bitty sandwich in.
And I was like, oh, what did you eat? And they were like, oh, we found this amazing sandwich in the fridge. And I was like, wait, what? And then they explained it was like this really delicious, high stacked, like, I think it was ham or something.
I think it was ham and cheese.
Yeah. And I was like, you ate which sandwich? Like, that moment is burned into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should leave now. Or is that you guys stay late now? You guys are.
I stayed away from the green room.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you tell David Cassidy that you just ate his sandwich.
Yeah, have fun with that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, thank you for that story.
We had some good vending machines, so there was some nice cheese crackers and peanut butter that substituted in.
You got a Diet Coke and a bag of pretzels. It was fine.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted a Coke, but you know how the machine never brings you what you
No,
want when you
doesn't
press
give
the
you
red
what
button.
you
No. Oh, you asked for Gatorade? I'm like, no, didn't think I did.
Well, oh well.
Oh, so that wasn't the fan.
That wasn't the story I was referring to, but I'm so happy that you shared that story because now I have two excellent. Well, the fan story isn't really excellent, but that Cassidy story.
Hey, you weren't there.
I wasn't. You're right. Can you please
No.
tell us about the story about the fan?
Tell us about Janet. You know, you're
Janet.
hanging out with Janet.
Miss Jackson?
Yeah.
That was my first actual show that I worked before they wouldn't let me work a show. So I don't know why. I guess I needed to get a little bit of something under my wings. But anyway, so it was up in Wilkes-Barre, and it was the first show that I worked. I loaded in, and she had her vanity, and I was in charge of setting it up just like the picture. You know, you have the picture, and you have to put everything just like the picture. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this fan's broken. And the guy's like, oh, just throw it out. I'll get another one. I'm like, throw it out? This is like my first show, and it's Janet Jackson, and there's a fan that I bet she sits there all the time just doing this backstage with that very fan. So I'm like, may I have the fan? So he's like, yeah, loser. Like, take the fan. You'll get used to this. So I took the fan, and I have no idea where it is now. That would have been great if I would have whipped that out, right? Like, right? What do you mean, fan?
I still have it to this day.
Broken, but it's a fan. Yeah. Since then, I stopped collecting trash from stage.
Oh, I don't think that's.
It's not completely true. But most trash.
I've seen your office on the side of the stage. I think you collect things.
Well, the budget didn't allow me for decorating, so I had to collect the trash that people left behind so I could decorate my office. So yes, there are things back there.
There are trinkets around the office.
Tchotchkes.
Tchotchkes. Trinkets and tchotchkes.
All right, so I know that your office is on the side of the stage at Zoellner. So how did you end up at Lehigh? Like, how did you went to all of these other places and then suddenly you found yourself there and
well, because the more I worked at other places, the more I realized the work was really hard, right? I mean, it's a hard job, right? You're lugging stuff up.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like stage management. It's
kind of like stage management, a lot like that. So, you know, in driving up to Wilkes-Barre or to Scranton or and then you're lugging big heavy things. And then I would go down to Zoellner and I'm like, wow, look at these cushy seats and the carpet and they have elevators. Like, I don't have to carry it up the steps. They have elevators. But then also the kids, there are kids there. So I thoroughly enjoy the kids. So that interaction and that teaching and that training and that learning and all of that just made that particular venue something that I really wanted to work at. So I just set my sights on it, and I told the guy that was in the position that I kind of took over, I said, as soon as you're out, I'm in, all right? No hurry, take your time, but as soon as you're out, I'm in. And that's how I got to that little office in the back of the stage.
So part of the podcast is, letting people outside the world of theater into the world of theater a little bit. So what is it that you do in that little office? When you took over that guy's job, what exactly were you taking over there?
Well, I was taking over some stuff, but I actually added more responsibility onto that, tweaked it a little bit to my liking, which they were okay to do. But I manage the crew, so I do a lot of training, interacting, all the paperwork, the firing, all that other stuff. I help with setups, so I do go around the building and I either do the setup, but hopefully more times than not, have students or somebody else that I can just teach them how to do it and they can go off and do it on their own. I interact with the artists. When the artist comes in, I make sure that they're happy as can be and they had a good experience while they were at Zoellner.
Get their sandwiches.
Make sure that they have their sandwich at the end. You know, you learn lessons along the way. And it usually has to do with green M&Ms or sandwiches. So
that's crazy. But that's
so they kind of built the job around you. Like they tailored it to your specifications.
Well, yeah, they kind of did a little bit. Okay, so don't tell anybody in Zoellner this, but they kind of did a little bit. When I started, it was this whole section of what I just explained. It was just a little part of that. And I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't know that it was less money than I'm making freelancing. So I'm like, okay, so I would like more responsibility. I would like to do more with this. I think that I could integrate these other things, reporting, a little more administrative, a little more involvement in sometimes with the budgeting and things like that. So they were gracious enough to expand it a little bit for me, which makes it a really nice position.
That's awesome. That's so great that they did that. They're lucky to have you.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah, I like that they helped you and that you figured that out, right? It was something that you had done. You knew you wanted to keep doing it, and it was how can we make this work? And it did.
And I think
that's pretty cool.
This was like 18, 20 years ago. So like probably about 18 years ago, 17, and they were just growing. They were really expanding and growing. So there were a lot of things that were shifting. So I would go over and do the lighting coordinator position when they didn't have one, or I would do scheduling when they didn't have somebody. So I think I filled in for Elizabeth with her first kid.
And the second one.
Yeah. The second one, yeah.
Yeah.
You stopped it too because I stopped filling in for you. Did you stop? So, I did a lot of that. So I knew how that position could integrate with other positions. So I think that worked out well.
That's fantastic. And Zoellner is relatively, so I mean, Zoellner was relatively new at that point, right? Because Zoellner was only about 20-ish years old.
Yeah.
So you caught the wave as they were coming up.
I caught the wave.
So what's one of your favorite aspects of theater and live performances?
Favorite aspects? What do I like about theater?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I like is working with the kids. And that's why I think I like Zoellner, or I know I like Zoellner more than a lot of the other places that I worked. They put on some great shows at the other venues, and they still continue to put on great shows. But they don't have that interaction, that training. You come in, you do your thing, you go away when you're supposed to go away, you sit when you're supposed to sit, you take a break when you're supposed to take a break. Zoellner, in working with the kids, it was like every year you have new kids. So you always have this whole thing keeping you on your toes so you're not getting stale and tired and exhausted from the same thing every year. So working with the kids is one of my favorite.
And do you get to listen and see all this art from backstage? Is it?
If I do my job right, and that starts from the day you hire the student or interview the student, hire the student, but loading in that day. But if you don't do it right, then you're stuck running around putting out fires the whole time. So if you do the job right, or if I did my job right, then I could sit down in my office backstage, put my feet up, drink some water finally, and listen to the show.
So your enjoyment of the show is directly correlated to how well you do your job then. Is that what?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if a sandwich goes missing, if an elevator gets stuck, if anything happens, the show is not quite as pleasant as
okay. Well, then I have a follow-up too for that. Do you enjoy theater or live performances outside of Zoellner, outside of your job? Or do you do enough of it at work that that's something you avoid once you leave work?
So before starting at Zoellner, I remember getting the brochure and I'm like, oh, I want to go see this, and that. I'm like, oh, I don't have enough money to go see all of those shows. So then I ended up working there. So I'm like, oh my God, I get to see all those things that I circled many years ago, and I'm living it. And then whenever I go to a show, it's like I either fall asleep because I'm like, oh my God, I get to sit down.
Right.
And it's sad. It's like, okay, so that's just putting me to sleep. Or we had relatives that were excited they were going to go see a show in New York. And I'm like, oh, we just did that like 3 days ago. It wasn't one of my favorite then, and I'm sure that it's not going to be today, but I'll go with the whole family and see it again. So I think I enjoy the whole package of putting it together and getting to experience the show, because if you do it right, it's a good show.
Matt and I have had this conversation multiple times that sometimes when you're like sitting in the theater from like a carpentry perspective or a prop perspective or whatever, you're kind of looking around and you're like, that's not really a period accurate piece of furniture on the stage right now. Do you ever find that you have that moment of like kind of examining someone else's performance through like a theatrical eye, a little bit more critical?
No, because I'm sure everybody's perfect. I'm not going to mention names on this one, but just about every time I go to a show, just even our own, right? And it's so hard to go into Zoellner as a patron, and you sit down and you're like, oh, I can see backstage. Do I text somebody?
Yep.
Or do I just pretend like I'm a normal page? I've got to text somebody, and you get the elbow, like, don't use your phone. I'm like, well, it's important to the show. I have to take care of this.
You'll thank me later. You'll thank me later.
You don't even know, but it's big.
I honestly thought I was the only one who did that. No, and I'm so happy to hear I'm not, because I do it every time.
I try really hard not to, but it's like I could see Josh. Josh, oh my God, the dancers are coming. No, come on. The curtain's all elephantitis. Come on.
Yeah.
There's always something. Yeah. So, yeah. And inevitably you have that light that's going nowhere that needs to be lit.
It's all true. It's all true. So you keep mentioning the kids. I am assuming that you're defining that as the students that go to Lehigh, right?
Yeah. The older I get, the younger they get too. But yeah.
What are some of your favorite like memories of things that you've learned from all of the various students that you've encountered along the way?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that I can't say the same thing to every student and expect them to understand it.
Yeah.
Because I'm huge in international students and bringing diversity into the center. So even if I explain it to an engineer, the communications major is going to think of it differently.
Yeah.
So not even talking race, but like everybody thinks about it differently. So, so one of my favorites is probably just occasionally, like you have that moment in time where you get caught and off guard and you end up being part of like a selfie, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, everybody clean up this mess in the area that we had this event. And they're like, we're taking a selfie. And I'm like, okay. And then we go back to cleaning up. And I look at that picture and I'm like, oh my God, the diversity of the kids that's in that picture. Yeah. I don't know if I'd ever really feel that and acknowledge that if I didn't have that evidence, like the fan that was broken. You have the evidence, it's there, but it's just the seeing that diversity is like, yeah, I did something right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of, kind of transforming the communication or transforming the teaching style or the learning style. We definitely deal with a variety of people from cultural backgrounds that aren't the same as ours. And it's been a really interesting journey to watch you and also experience that on my own of like, that didn't hit, right? That instruction obviously didn't make sense. So let's try again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with keeping us young and all of that good stuff.
It's nice too that it's reflected in like the season selection that Zoellner has. There is such a diverse, not only like, race and ethnic backgrounds, but you have like circus performances and orchestra. And so that is nice that also these students can see representation of themselves on stage as well and see such a variety, so that like, a lot of people might not know anything about theater. So if you can get them in the building by, doing a circus thing, then like maybe they'll stay in the building and learn a little bit more about what we do.
Yeah.
And in that realm, like occasionally we just give out tickets to students, right? And they're like so excited that they can come in to see a circus event that would cost too much money for them to budget or make their way over or whatever. And it's great to just say, hey, come on in and just look at the work that you did. You can see where you screwed up so you know to do it better next time. Like that light that's hanging off that side. But anyway.
Yeah, I've always admired your patience. I feel like sometimes I've walked into Zoellner, and there's some stuff going on backstage, and I'm like, oh man, I would not have handled it as well as she just did.
It does take patience.
You do a very good job with composure. You make it look easy.
I try. Occasionally I get all flustered and I'm like, I'm like today, and I know most of those days, right? Those 20, 21-hour days where you're doing silly stuff all over the building. So those days. And I typically like to go in and say, at some point today, I'm going to say something that doesn't make sense and or yell at you for no reason at all. I apologize. So when that comes, and I know it's going to, because you're going to get exhausted, that your feet are going to hurt, that you didn't drink enough water, so now you have a headache, and then you still have to do the thing. So I'm like, there it is.
Well, and you and I kind of have this ongoing, I'm going to call it a joke. Where
You're not going to tell them all our secrets, are you, Matt?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Where like I'll wander over from the shop to have a conversation with you, and like, which usually like, oh, it's Matt. What do you? Welcome back. We can totally handle this at another time, right? Like,
yeah.
But I always enjoy that our rapport is such that we acknowledge that we both know we're busy, we're having a bad day, but typically we end up having the conversation. But it's always fun to be like, oh, you're back, huh, Matt? What do you need now? Like, oh, well, everything, Becky. I want everything.
And then we're standing there having a good conversation, and who comes over but Trevor? Like, Matt, what are you doing? I'm like, we're finally having a good conversation.
Stay out of it, Trevor.
Trevor had to learn it all.
I invited you into this.
Trevor doesn't listen to these, does he? He doesn't.
Probably not.
I don't know.
Nobody listens. Got like 15 people.
He knows where he stands. No.
So we've talked about the students, and we've talked about backstage and all of the crazy stuff that we have to go through. The 20-hour days. Oh my gosh. I'm not sure I missed that.
No.
So besides giving up 20-hour days, like what other goals do you still have for your theater career? Have you come up with anything in these months of like kind of being off the crazy train since COVID?
Months of reflection.
Yeah.
Well, I do know that I'm enjoying the work-life balance right now.
Right?
It's a really nice thing. I'm loving it.
Shout out to episode 2.
Thank you, Bailey. Good catch.
In case you missed it, we did a whole episode on
work-life balance. We didn't figure it out. So if you have the secret and you figured it out, please tell us now.
Enter suggestions below. So I'm enjoying that, but it also does give me a chance to actually really dream about what would I like the center to look like. Not that I have the greatest say in the center, but I love putting my creative input in. But for myself, I feel that I could be utilized better. I feel like some of the things that I do, I could just be a lot more effective in other areas. And also, I would love to have that wrap around the students. I enjoy the overhires and the wage workers and all the other people that come in and all that. But giving a student an experience on campus that they can walk away with is huge to me. And if it's some other part of Lehigh, great. But if it's part of Lehigh and they were part of Zoellner and they were part of this little section, if I could give any of them a positive story to take away, that would be awesome. So I would like to see me utilized more in, the training, the working with the students and that whole bit.
That's really great. Do you keep in touch with a lot of your former students who've worked with you?
I do keep in touch with many of them. Yes. It's great to see them every once in a while. It's like I'll post something that, hey, I'm heading to Wimbledon. I'm like, hey, I live in London. Can we get together? I'm like, oh, absolutely. You had a baby? Like, yeah. So it's great because it's great to see them do so well in so many different areas, and that they have a good enough rapport with, I'll just say, me, that they want to keep in touch, or when they get back on campus, they stop in to say hi, or I brought my mom and dad in to meet you, or one of those fun things. It's like, oh, that's cute.
That's cute.
It's cute. Sometimes I feel like mama or dad, but
So now that you've had this moment of reflection of what you still want to do with your career, for all of our listeners at home, watch episode 1 if you haven't. We talk about our commune. Join our cult. It's team podcast. Um, we've already inducted Becky into the cult yesterday. The whole ritual was performed. So if you weren't doing theater, other than joining our commune, what would you be doing?
well, designing my trailer to take to the commune, of course. I mean, you gotta have a nice pad, right?
True, it's
Right,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
Not all of us
so-
want to live in a yurt. Only some of us are going to live in a yurt.
Well, I do many trips to Costa Rica, so I love Costa Rica, and part of those trips when I go is typically personal development. I do personal development in addition to, I have been doing it in addition, even during the crazy times, to what I do at Zoellner. So through the pandemic, I realized how much of a passion I have for that. And we've been doing a lot with that. So I think, I would probably transition into doing more trips to Costa Rica, more personal development, more, we have this group, it's called Ball, Breathe, Ask, Allow, Listen, and Love. So it's doing things through those steps. And when you do those steps and you use that, it just makes the day so much calmer. And I would probably move into that more.
Do you? Sorry, Bailey. Okay. Do you? I don't know. Nobody knows what happened except me, and I don't even know what happened. Do you?
Now I'm really curious. What's going
I'm on
on?
my second cup of coffee, so I have no.
Happening.
Well,
I don't know either, but I'm going to fake technical issues real soon. Okay? Just so you know it's coming. What?
So, huh? So,
Listeners, everything is fine. Do not be alarmed.
Apparently, we all had 2 cups of coffee.
I'm on my second right now.
I don't usually have to though, so maybe it's just throwing me. Anyway, my my question is, when you said personal development, are you leading and teaching these things? Is this
Yeah.
something that you?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, and that's the fun part because I have done a lot of work in that area for myself. So having all of that just for yourself is kind of empty, right? So sharing that and learning from other people that are discovering different things about themselves and growth in themselves and what they do, it's just so rewarding. Yeah.
And as a participant of the ball, of many of the ball workshops that you've had in the Lehigh Valley, I have to say, I always come away energized. I always kind of go like, I got to do this on Sunday and I got to get out of bed and I have to go to this thing.
Right?
I really want to do this thing. So just
do the same thing. Okay.
And then I do it. And she has us like, where she's like, okay, today we're going to color on, here's some brown paper and here's a bunch of markers and crayons and we're going to color and we're going to discuss this. And it's just like this most amazing kind of like basic energy just kind of comes out and you're just happy and joyful by the end. It's ridiculous. And you have breakthroughs. It's amazing.
Sounds perfect for the commune.
Yes, actually.
The commune, again, it was originally planned to be in Vermont. We're moving it down to Costa Rica. Just better for everyone.
Yep.
It's seasonal. It can be seasonal.
I think we should have 2, right? And we'll address different parts of the world at different times of the year.
There you go.
I like the seasonal idea.
Yeah.
Are crayons and markers allowed in Costa Rica? I know you said that.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun fact that they're in the blue zone. So crayons, yes, right? Non-toxic crayons are allowed into that area. But you take markers with the plastic markers? No. They're like, oh, I haven't seen a marker in years. Like,
wow.
Like, what?
And is there going to just be a whole generation of people that don't know what markers are?
Like, yeah, they're going to be no clue. But so anything like that, they just don't use. They use paper. They don't use like these. Here's a plastic gadget for everybody to create their thing. It's like, sorry, So, so yeah, so you can't really, and in fact, like I've had a birthday or two down there, and they wrap their presents in different like banana leaves, and then they use like a palm frond to tie it,
It's
and they make their
amazing.
cards and their Christmas trees all by natural materials. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, it's how creative can you be with driftwood that floated up from the ocean? They get creative, I'll tell you.
I'm so intrigued to now I want to learn more about this whole situation and
Yeah,
how it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to go to Costa Rica.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I have so many things to learn.
Well, we can do a little session at the commune.
I'm in. But we have to
I'm in.
prepare so when we go down there, we know.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Right, we'll have
So
to
we'll do
prep.
a couple in Vermont as trial
Yeah.
runs.
Would you say that theater has influenced other parts of your life, or how do you find that being involved in the arts has um, changed other things that you do?
So arts is all part of being creative, right? So if you don't have that section in your life of being creative and expressing yourself and doing that outward thing, you're really stifling your growth, in my perspective, right? You can have the intellectual, but that expression of art is huge, right? And people don't realize that they use it every day. There's some aspect of your day that you're being creative, that's using your imagination, or maybe you face a situation because you're now working from home and you don't know how to set up the microphone, but you make a game out of it so you don't get all stressed about it, right? So you just come up with creative different solutions. So it doesn't have to be I can't play an instrument. Express yourself in some kind of movement, noise making activity that gets that imagination going. Did that answer your question? What was your question, Matt?
Yeah, no, that was good.
I went to the left a little bit, didn't I? Or the right? I don't know. Not
Music,
talking
ZAC.
politics.
um, no, that kind of talk. Yesterday you had mentioned a little bit. We talked about work-life balance, how it
Yeah.
does keep you away from your family, if you're having 21-hour calls, and how you. Do you want to talk about how it influences what you do when you get out, like trail running? Do you get a chance to go and enjoy the stuff you like? And
I I do. Most days it's successful. But on a day after perhaps a 20-hour day and it's your only day off and you're exhausted and you're like, I just need to get out in nature, and you start walking like, oh, it feels so good to run, but I'm tired. So you run and you trip a little and you're like, oh, that was a warning not to run, right? So 10 steps later, I start running again and I fall down and bruise some ribs. And, it doesn't always look great. So it does influence your outside activity to a degree. I think sometimes I planted things that I'm like, I forget what I planted. So whatever tomato comes up, we're going to eat it, right? It's just like I just threw them in the ground because I'm tired. So working in theater is a commitment, right? And there's a lot of sacrifices. And I think, in the beginning, I went through this stage. I'm like, oh my God, I'm learning new things. I'm being creative and I'm out and I'm playing and I'm learning and what else are you doing? Show me something else. And I would learn. And then I was having fun doing, and actually being part of it, right? And I went through that phase. And now I'm at this different phase where I'm like, I want to have this family life. I don't want to get much further along without being able to share time with significant people in my life and travel to Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be in the arts. So I'm at a little different phase at this moment. So yeah, the balances are like that.
Well, I hope you find a way to make it work for you, because they like you've alluded to that they do line up and they do have they share a lot of the same basic structures. So I hope you find a way to make that all work if you're not
thank
already.
you.
So.
I mean, it's working to a degree, and I'm figuring out the dance, right? Because you have to let go of expectation and let it find its way, and it's figuring its way out, and we'll just see where it goes.
Awesome.
Keep putting the positive intention out there, right?
Keep dancing, right? Isn't that the
Keep
thing?
dancing. Just keep dancing. Where is that music?
Well, there is music coming right up, actually.
Let's see how well I can do
Let's
this.
see how that goes.
All right, so I'd like you to cue up the dramatic piano if you don't mind, Matt.
Oh, dramatic.
No.
Matt.
Buttons. I just don't know.
Okay, so we all know that was not a piano, right?
What about a trombone? We got a trombone in there?
Wah, wah.
All right, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to the right instrument.
There we go.
All right.
Okay. All right. Okay, everybody.
So who put Matt in charge?
This is my one and only chance to do this. So.
Bailey.
It's my Christmas gift to him.
Thank you.
Look how big his eyes are. Like, he's so excited. Like, this is crazy.
Elizabeth, would you like to
Shall we try again?
No, let's do that.
Cue dramatic piano, go. So Becky, I'm wondering, what does the world without art look like to you?
Do you remember that drum, that wah, that horn, the wah, like, deflated? I mean, that's the creative part. So it'd be very black and white. Not that there's anything wrong with the colors black and white, right? But it'd be very dull to me. I thrive off of creativity and imagination and being around the students.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's such a huge part of everything we do. Do you ever find yourself taking it for granted?
Do I find some of the longer days, I tend to lose sight of things because you end up in like that just keep moving mode, and you've done this before, you know how to do this, just keep moving. But I try very hard to find some moment of joy in every day with every conflict, or something that I could learn from that. So I'll often just watch the interaction of people on the stage, whether it's the crew or the artists, and there's always something that keeps me involved and keeps me sparked.
I think what's really incredible and really like inspiring about what you've been saying this whole time, artists and theater makers don't just do art for the sake of doing art. You know, it's never, I like making art, I work in theater, but it's always, you know, I love the diversity that I can bring to campus, or I love seeing the joy on this performer's face when I do my job well, or I love seeing students like find a new passion for something. Especially in theater, you know, you're doing it because you want the audience to have a good time. You want an entire crowd of people to be happy after like they leave something you've worked on. I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't know about artists. It's not just, I like painting, I'm going to pick up a paintbrush and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But it's, you know, I want other people to experience this joy that I feel. This is my outlet to the world, and this is how I could put things into the world. So I feel like that's important for people to know.
Yeah. And like, we all do something different in the arts. All four of us do something completely different. And if they can experience art through somebody else and they explain it or show it or do something different with a paintbrush that I don't do, it's a matter of making that connection and just watching their face when they hit that thing that they really enjoy or they really feel good about. Or I was on this big set and they're over there taking selfies. I'm like, no, you can't really do that. But, you know, you see that joy that comes from them and that discovery. And it takes all of us because everybody's doing something different. So I can't just do my part of it and think it's going to be good. It's a group thing. It's a whole commune. Just to segue back.
She is definitely in.
Yeah.
We're definitely, yeah.
That was a really easy sell.
I was just called easy again.
Oh,
Twice in an hour. How does that like? Something you said too, you know, made me kind of think about things on my end and working with students and the experience I get with that. And coming from the carpenter point of view, there is, like you said, that joy in watching someone maybe struggle to do something. And then watching them at the end of the year achieve and know that they can build this thing or do this thing. They've never held a power tool before, but now they've cut and measured and marked and put together something. And it's just like there's this level of empowerment that you've given the student now on a whole level that they never thought they had. And that is really cool to watch and and we're lucky to be in that position.
Even in the small things, like teaching students how to sweep, I've never
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
that would be something I had to do, but a lot of them have come from different lives than some of us. So, some students have never swept before. They've never used a broom before. And being able to give them these tiny glimpses of independence is really rewarding, that they can accomplish things and they are proud of themselves for being able to do adult things.
Most of them, yes. Some
Most
don't
of
like
them.
that sweeping.
The number of people I've had to teach to sweep, mop, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yes.
It's
Sometimes
something.
repeatedly.
And Matt, I've benefited from your teaching in the scene shop because I've had a student of yours come over and build office walls for me because I had that curtain door, remember?
Yeah.
Whatever was left on the side of the stage that I stole and I made a curtain door. Until the fire inspector said, no curtain doors, you need a door. So they came over and built a frame around my office and put a door on with a little window. And I'm like, score one for me. Great
There you
job
go.
for teaching them.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear. Hopefully it stands up for long enough that it's hopefully.
I haven't been back for months, but it was there when I left.
Okay, good.
It was there for the inspector. We're good.
Okay. Another 5 years, we'll get it back. Yeah, we'll get it.
All of the tchotchkes actually are the supports for the walls. Like a magpie nest or something,
I'm not sure, but I think they're making fun of me now. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, your very official office.
It's that creativity that we all talked about, right? You found a way to make it yours, and we all know it's yours.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been alluding to it all podcast, but how do you want to impact the world? What legacy do you want to leave behind?
I'm hoping that I didn't wait till now to figure that out and do some of those things, right? It's in the simple things. For me, it's just in the simple things. It's in the daily things. It's not in the, I want to do this big, huge thing. It's like, I do actually want to lead by example. I do want to allow people to be creative. I don't want to allow my ego to get involved. So if I can just bring a little bit of that joy or that patience or that ease or that, this is actually fun. I haven't done this in years to somebody. That to me is huge. I've had the pleasure of having people praise me for some of the work that I've done, both at Zoellner and in the side thing. And that is hugely rewarding, but it's all the persistent little things that actually lead up to that. Same thing with being in the arts, right? It's all those little things that lead up to the actual show, that the show is not going to be what it's meant to be if you don't have all those other little things or the caliber it can be. So it's in the little things and it's keeping the ego out.
In all of those little things that lead up to the show, are there any good pre-show, post-show, during show stories that you can share with us? Good, bad, other?
Can't be there as long as I've been there and not have one or two other than the sandwich. And the sandwich is pretty good, but and speaking of the elevator before, I was, you know which one I'm talking about already.
Go ahead.
So the artist, well, we can actually say the artist, can't we? It was Eddie Palmieri.
Yes.
That one, that was one I'm talking about, was in the elevator with a couple of his musicians and got stuck. Now he at the time he was like 84 or something, right? So he can't use steps. So he has to use the elevator. Now his manager people / son were kind of going crazy because right now his father's stuck in an elevator, right? And the show's supposed to start. Eddie's in the elevator, so it only would open the doors to the basement level. So I use my special keys in the special hallways, get down to that area, and I slip into the elevator. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the elevator, but I get in
Now
the
you're in there.
elevator, like, I'm in here. And we're still not on stage, but I'm in the elevator. So all I could do on that end was be able to say, like, hey, everything's fine, right? So we ended up chit-chatting and talking, and we're laughing and having a good time. And I can hear on the headset that they're freaking out. Like it's now 20, 25 minutes in the elevator trying to get up to the stage. The guy's 84. Is he okay? We're chatting away, find out we both have the same birthday. Him and I bonded like nobody's business. We get up, get out the elevator. We're laughing, and the whole like red-faced group of them are like, I'm like, wow. We had a quite different experience.
You had a great time at that, right? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, just should have been in the elevator with us for a half an hour long, trying to find something to talk about. But anyway, so that's one of my favorites. I don't think I told you that story, but I think that's one of my favorites.
You should have just thrown him over the shoulder and brought him up the stairs.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, that's no. That
got this. Don't worry.
Yeah. It was like the basement level through the bowels of the. That would have been a long.
It was the same route that I was going to take, or that I did take with Vanessa and her entourage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got stuck in the elevator about 2 months ago.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you want to publicize that, but like,
whenever I go in that elevator, do I have some kind of communication? Yes.
Right.
Yes. I'm going in.
I called Bailey. Are you here? She's like, I'm outside. What's up? I'm like, I'm stuck in the elevator. She's like, oh. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I thought I'd call somebody, and apparently Bailey was the one I decided to call.
Did Bailey know what to do with the elevator? Did you go to that course?
I pressed some buttons. I pressed a couple buttons. I was like, hopefully this will do something.
And I moved, but I didn't get out. I didn't.
And the sad thing is it's been repaired. So
yeah, a whole new motor and everything. Yeah.
Oh my good Lord.
But anyway, so that
old enough to be cursed.
It's got to be. There's a ghost in that building. We got to make sure we keep the lights on, right? The ghost light always needs to be on.
Yep. Ghost light.
I think it lives in the elevator.
You think we could like tempt it out of the We'll put a trail of ghost lights into the theater and see if we'll follow them.
Little breadcrumbs.
Right? Ooh, a ghost light.
I seem to recall another artist that I won't name, but that you had a really hard time getting on stage. It was a storyteller. I'm not thinking of who we spoke of yesterday, but I'm thinking of a different artist who was a storyteller who just was kind of distracted. Do you remember that?
Oh my God. No.
Why don't you say the name and we'll edit it?
Okay, we'll edit it out.
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. So
you think that's worth telling?
There is that. Yeah, you might know a little bit more than I do, obviously, but yeah. So I think that was probably the only time I was really reprimanded on the side of the stage.
Ooh.
But we can get into this. It's not like it has any like lasting memory or anything, but
I'm over it. It's fine.
I'm fine. I'm good. But no, he is a storyteller, right? I mean, that's what he does for a living. He's a storyteller. So we're backstage and he's telling stories. And I'm like, yeah, but they just called you. He's telling stories. So the whoever is on before, they're like, they were coming off and I didn't clap. I was talking to him. And he's like, whenever anybody performs, you should clap. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, so I'm standing there clapping. I'm like, okay. He's telling stories. I'm like, okay, but now you're supposed to go on. Like, okay, another story. So he just kept telling story after story. And I'm like, I know. I don't even know what to do. Do you interrupt the star? Oh, yeah. Then there was another one. Like, I don't know if you remember one. The
storyteller becomes the story in this case,
right.
I guess.
He is now.
Just walk out on stage and maybe they'll follow you, right? And then
I was right there next to you. I remember because we were like, we should get him on stage. Like He's been introduced, and we were like, what do we do?
Like, how do you interrupt the story of the storyteller?
Yeah, it was.
And about the Moravians, and it was interesting, and all those things, yeah. And then the guy that unzipped his pants because the mic didn't work and he went out. And I'm like, okay, that's just not a good thing to have for this. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. That was yeah.
I don't know him personally, but that's funny to me.
He's
because
out
I
there and he's
enjoy-
talking and the mic wasn't working and they tried to get it working. He's like, the mic's not working. So finally he just announces like, hey, we're having technical issues. The mic's not working. And it's fed up to his shirt in the back, right? So he's trying to get this mic off. He just unbuttons it. He just undoes his belt, undoes his pants, and he's taking this mic out. And I'm like, oh my God, how far is, because he could go far. Like he could. And I'm like, how far do we let him go before?
He turned around.
He did turn around, luckily. Now, do you trust him to just stay turned around? Like, I thought somebody was going to have to go out there.
and just turn him
Somebody
around.
did.
Yeah, the audio.
I thought we were going to have to go out there.
Yeah, that's
but
what I
luckily
thought
the
one of us.
manager did. And you're like, oh, phew.
Thank God. Yeah.
Were you there the night we had a pianist? I can't remember the artist's name, but his phone was on the piano.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it started, he had an alarm set on his phone and it was going off in the middle of a song for like 10 minutes.
He just plays through it. He just kept.
And I was on the stage because I think I was managing that night. I was like, do I go out there and shut that off?
like-
I don't know. This is so
like-
weird. What a weird problem.
You look at the manuals and like, okay, artist on the stage, his phone is ringing in the middle of I don't see it in the manual. I don't
It
see
wasn't
that
covered
in
in
the manual.
training, right? There's no.
I did a lot of trainings, didn't see that one at all, what to do with the ringing phone.
So what you two need to do, it sounds like, is create your own emergency planning book for all these situations that no one else is prepared for. Right?
How do you, like, it's always the weird and obscure, right? So
That's my favorite thing about actors. You can never predict what they're about to do next. Every time they surprise you in like a new and
Yeah.
interesting and horrifying way.
it's not like you can say, in the case of this, do this. It's like, no, horror's going to happen. You're going to be standing there like, I don't know what to do.
Oh,
And then you just let it.
right, and part of you. I don't know how many of you of us have acted who's actually I do. I don't think any. Well, Elizabeth a little bit, right? Bailey, I know that's not your thing. You produced and directed, but like in that moment, right? You're like, this is totally the best option I have, and there's like, and I feel like once you've picked it, you're committed. Like you've ruled out all other options, and this is by far the best thing you can do, and you're just gonna make it happen. And then, like in retrospect, you're like, oh yeah, there was like 14 other things I could have done.
Yeah.
But right actors, they figure it out, and they're like, okay, great, this is gonna work. It'll be perfect. No, it's terrifying.
I mean,
right?
just pants myself on stage. That'll be the best option. So we've talked a little bit about your war stories. Do you have a moment or a couple of moments where you're like, this was like my best theater moment, or this was like a moment that really like was inspiring or uplifting?
And again, like, because I've been blessed to have so many, it changes all the time with the memory, right? I think one of them recently was simply we had kids in, and it was, I forget who the artist was, but they came up just to play to do a school show, right? And we had a bunch of kids in the front row. The place was almost empty, right? So there's maybe a couple hundred people down in the front, but they were all young kids. And this band that's basically local, and I can't remember the name right off the bat, but it would be a great ad for them. But they were playing and they were so engaging and they were so inspiring in how they engaged the students that these 10 and 8-year-old boys and girls were standing up and like gyrating with excitement because they were so thrilled about this thing that's going on right now. And just seeing that still sends goosebumps. Just seeing how that joy that was locked up in these kids or was sitting in these kids ready to come out, and how that artist knew what to do to bring that out. And just to see that happen was just like, it was just so amazing just to watch that.
Was that Bakiti?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. You should definitely support him, follow him. He is a great, and his bandmates, great human beings, right? Superhuman beings. And they're so down to earth. So when you're talking to them off the stage, they're like your best friends, and you're like just having this great in-depth conversation, and it's not about a sandwich. Somehow, I'm going to let go of that. You guys just brought that back up, and I'm going to let go of that again.
You're gonna have to like go through therapy again for that one, right?
Okay, not another 2 hours with you guys, please. Come on.
Oh.
This is
you can
by
edit
far.
that out, right?
I don't know if I'm going to. No, I totally will. Yeah, it's coming out. I think we're almost done here. So Becky, I'm going to ask you: do you have any thing that you want to say or touch on that we haven't covered? Do you have any messages? Any last words? No last words. That's
For our 6 followers.
yeah.
What do you want to tell Austin?
What are your last words?
We had 15 followers in the middle of the podcast, and now we're down to 6. Thank you very much.
It's been a wild ride.
Becky,
Share with a friend or two. I don't know. Give it as a gift for Christmas. I don't know. Spread the word. I don't. What am I supposed to be saying here?
do you have a message for people? What do you want? Do you have anything? Any last thoughts? I don't want to say words, right? Because that sounds terrible.
That does sound a little bit harsh.
Do you have a message for the world that you want to end this podcast on?
I just, when you get a chance to be creative or to go watch people authentically being creative, whether you're watching the crew backstage, which is an art form of itself, or you're watching the crew that comes in with the artist, or you're actually watching the artist, go and do it. Go and do it. If you get a chance to go backstage and watch how something comes together, absolutely go and do it, because you're going to learn so much about how much actually goes into these events. And it can blow your mind how synchronistic it all needs to be. So definitely explore, play, be creative, dabble, learn, do it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Does anybody else have any final words?
I would say, by and large, the artists that we have at Zoellner, and this is my experience. I'm guessing you've had a similar experience, but by and large, the artists we get at Zoellner are all so authentic and genuine and down to earth and just kind of amazing human beings. Yeah. I'd say 98% of them.
Yeah. It's very rare. And even like, I guess Bernadette Peters came in, right? And she had just lost her husband. Her husband had just died, and she was still quite very warm and comfortable with people, but just went through and was going through a whole grieving process. And yet she was still a fantastic. And same with like Kristen Chenoweth, right? I remember walking through the scene shop with Kristen Chenoweth, and she had just had that accident.
Yeah.
And you knew she was in pain, and she was coming back to the country actually early, because she went to recuperate. She was coming back to the country early to do the show, to stand in for somebody that canceled on us. And walking through the scene shop to go to the black box, and she's talking and having like just chatty. And then we're like, oh, we can't go through we have to go down and around. We can't just go through the atrium because people will see her. So we went down and around, and she was going to go into the black box for a meet and greet. And I remember standing there about ready to open the door, and she's like, just give me a minute. I'm like, oh, okay. We were just chatting. Everything seemed fine. Like, nerves getting, like, I was not sure, but I'm like, I can give you a minute. No worries. And to see her work through and work up it was pain, exhaustion, the whole bit of trying to do the thing that she loves doing. She clearly loves doing it. She just needed a minute. And then when she stepped out there, she was so lit and so engaging. And I'm like, that is like the kind of artist that we get in. Like, they have stuff. They obviously have stuff coming in. We all have stuff. But they are able to compartmentalize and be professional, yet warm and inviting. and personable. And I think you're right, Elizabeth. Like, we get so many of those at Zoellner that those other artists that perhaps you hear the stories about, we don't hopefully have to engage with too much, because they do get a lot of great artists in.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's a fun little story. I didn't expect to get.
I know.
Oh, sorry. There's so many stories, really. And
Yeah.
That's fun. And actually, back to David Cassidy real quick on no, this is actually really
why
funny
not?
because well, 100%, why not, right? So Cheryl's mom ushered for that show.
In Zoellner?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Because I think the one thing that they talk about is like she met David Cassidy. And I'm trying to remember if I feel like he was a little cold to her and she brings that up.
Just
I'm going to have to tell her that. I'm going to say, right, somebody ate his sandwich. You don't even know why he was mad, right? Somebody ate this man's sandwich. So I feel like I can go and tell her why maybe he was a little cold that day because he didn't get his sandwich. Like,
was Cheryl's mom one of the ushers we had to bring on stage to be back in the wing?
I don't know. I've never heard that part of the story, so maybe not. I think she met him down, like underneath.
David had a fear of being jumped from behind.
Oh, okay.
And we had to post sentries. What?
Bailey snuck up on me one time, and she gives me a lot of crap for it. So I was saying that some of us have issues with people sneaking up from behind. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. It's very real, Bailey. Come on.
That is like a 40th degree black belt or whatever it is.
I mean, right? I really.
And you have a paintbrush. That's about it.
Well, it's funny. I always tell people not to sneak up on me because I don't know what's going to happen. But apparently, nothing is going to happen. There's no martial arts reflex that kicks in if I get surprised. So I just.
Yeah. I remember that so vividly between the sandwich and this really burned in fear of being jumped from behind. And I think it came from all of those years of like rabid fans that he had lived through in the 70s and 80s.
Well, he still had them coming. Like, they were bringing their kids.
They were still there.
Like, so they were just coming over from, I think it was England, or it was across the seas, the pond. It was somewhere else. And they followed him like from the night before or 2 nights before.
Oh, they were there.
Like,
they were.
You just came across that to see somebody.
It was hardcore.
But so he had some really hardcore fans. And I know, like, we had security for him, but I know that when he was rehearsing, like, he didn't want to be really bothered, right? So he had his thing, he did his stuff, and then he wanted to not have questions. And I remember, I would stand on the side and I'm just watching. And when he was done rehearsing, I think every time he came over and he went behind me and he just stood behind me. And he had security people, and I'm just standing there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to turn around and talk to you. Like, because I know that you don't want to be talked to right now. So I would just like not turn around and talk to him, which was one of the best things I could do for the artist, was to not talk to him. Right. Yeah. But yeah, he was, so by the time the sandwich came around, I don't know. I don't think there was any coming back after that.
Understood.
It was a bad day for him that day.
I'll relay that. That might make her feel better. I hope.
Bad day to be rich and famous. I don't even want to hear it. No, we all have stuff. Just, we know it's a little bit harder when you're making less than minimum wage here.
That's why we get all these trinkets. That's why we.
Yeah.
Trinkets. Free stuff on stage. You left this piece of fabric. I can make a shawl out of that.
I will make a doorway with this.
Yeah. I can use that in my office.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Becky. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was having a blast. Like, is it time? Is it like, oh, seriously, we have another couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's go. Let's go. Game on.
Game on. Challenge accepted.
Exactly.
All right. Wait a minute. I do have to go to the bathroom.
Any secret talents? Like, do you rap? Can you freestyle? Matt showed us rapping on a previous podcast.
Didn't we start with the choir thing when I was in elementary school? Yeah. No. The talents in that area are like minimal.
I don't know. Maybe you're really good at like bird whistles or something. Just
bird whistles.
I'm trying to think of an interesting talent that you might have.
Thinking I'm a good bird whistle.
You spend so much time in nature, right? You've heard them. You can.
Yeah, you had the squirrels in the attic.
Yeah, I do it. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. No more squirrels in the attic.
That was terrifying.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
lived down the street from Becky. Now I live around the corner from Becky because I moved literally a block from where I used to live. But
so you didn't tell me that before now. I would have had plenty of chores for you. There's some snow out there right now.
I'll come over with my shovel. I'll be right there.
There you go.
But I had to check squirrels that were
Oh.
in a live cage in Becky's attic.
Oh.
And I was so terrified because I had to go on top of this ladder and like push a ceiling tile. And I was so afraid a squirrel was going to be there and like attack my face because you just had to like poke your head up into darkness.
See, now for some reason, Bailey, I thought that you would be like this brave thing. Like, I can handle all of this. If it attacks me, I can wrestle it to the ground.
Well, this was what, 2 years ago? And now is my public confession that I was afraid of being attacked by a squirrel. So
yeah, every time it was just like, oh, they're up there again. I'm like, why don't you just fix the hole? Like,
are you talking to the squirrels there?
Right?
Yeah. Well, I was talking to the guy that was lame, that would keep setting traps but not fix the hole. I'm like, well, you keep setting traps and you release them someplace else. There's a lot of squirrels here. The neighbor feeds them. They're going to
come back, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think they moved out. It's time. Is it our time? I think we're next in line.
And I think the guy's like, I didn't come and get the traps like the day or the week after we were leaving for Costa Rica or something like that. It was weird. I'm like, well, I don't want dead squirrels in the attic for 2 weeks. So Bailey said, sure. I was so grateful. Like,
I just had to stand on the tip. Well, I was afraid because I was standing on top of a ladder. So I was like, if I get startled by a squirrel, then I'm going to fall off this ladder into this home where no one's going to be back for 2 weeks. So I'm going to be the dead squirrel on the floor. Like,
oh, I didn't even think about that part. Oh, God.
She went so many places
really,
with that
really
story.
dark
like, I don't feel like it had to go that far. I mean, it was a little cage. If the squirrel was up there, it was in the cage. The food was in the cage, Bailey.
Next week on CSI.
A little chalk outline around me and then a chalk outline around a squirrel. Yeah.
The cage is over here.
Yeah.
Just acorns all over me.
We're not really sure what happened here. We're not really.
Yeah. I
just need a promise that the commune is going to be squirrel free. Okay. It's really traumatizing.
Yeah. Well, if we move the commune to Costa Rica, it's going to bring monkeys.
Monkeys. Lots of monkeys.
I'm okay.
Like,
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Like early in the morning, monkeys.
Are there lizards? As long as there's lizards.
Geckos and lizards.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Plenty
Turtles.
Turtles, giving birth turtles.
Aww.
Yep, all those things. Good for them. Procreating like they're supposed to.
In their plastic-free sand.
Yes.
Right, the plastic-free water. Yeah.
It's so funny when you're down there and you're out on the beach and you're taking a walk, doing whatever, and you see an umbrella. And you're like, because they don't, like, you don't have umbrellas. If you need shade, you go up to the palapa they built out of like leaves and old lumber trees that rolled up. Like, why do you need an umbrella? Or they kick around a ball or have a lawn beach chair.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? It's like we never even take a towel.
Yeah.
So you can always tell the tourist is like, a chair. You'll learn.
Make sure all your trash is going with you because we know.
Yeah. That whole area, yours. You're coming on Sunday to clean that up.
Right. We know who you are.
It's funny, all the things that we take for so much for granted that it's just like, that's just condemned, like, like I'm sitting here going, okay, so like, I heard that you can take a pencil, right? But can I have a pencil with an eraser attached by that little metal band? Is that okay?
Little metal band.
Like, I don't know.
You have the little metal band.
These are the kind of questions I have.
They don't have erasers.
You have the separate pink eraser. Right? You have
They don't have the pencils with the little metal band and the eraser. They might have an eraser.
Oh, I was going to say, okay.
But they don't have like the little metal band. Mm-hmm. They just have a pencil made out of wood.
That probably doesn't have paint on it.
No. No.
So much better than what we're doing now. And I wish it was
is
fine.
amazing.
I wish you could publicly shame people like they do for when they're not being environmentally friendly.
Right?
I want to do that.
I think you should. I think you
Just
should.
start. It'll be okay. It'll just
But we were just talking on the phone to somebody, and they were having dinner, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we went and we're doing all these things for the pandemic and everything, and we have these what are those blocks called that you scan it in for your menu, like when you go
the
out to
QR
eat?
code.
The QR code,
Yeah.
right? So we have the menu or the plastic table thing with the QR code in. And down there, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we may have these QR codes," and she picks up a block of like a coconut with a QR code on it, and like, "Yeah, we have these QR codes, so you just scan that in." I'm like, "Of course, that's how you have your QR code."
codes,
I love
right?
it.
Coconut.
Why would you put it on a plastic tent on the table? That just doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
Like,
that's
why do you need the
amazing.
plastic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, you'd like come back so enlightened.
I'd love to. Once this pandemic's over, we're going,
Yeah,
team.
we're
Going to
getting
Costa Rica.
getting a caravan together. We're taking our.
You gotta start
trailers.
like plotting it out, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna have to.
Well, we have some land, so you can bring a tent, and then you can just camp out on the land.
Yes.
I'm gonna take you up on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you up on that, but now I got to figure out what kind of tent I can bring.
Yeah, right. I gotta do some
Right.
research.
Yeah,
If
nothing
I
I own
were
right now.
hiking the Appalachian Trail for 2 years, what tent would I take? That's the tent you take on the plane.
Yeah.
Can you buy these down there? Can you?
They do have glamping down there, so, like right across the street, kind of. There's a glamping place, but yeah, not at our place yet.
All right. I'm gonna do the research.
I'm not telling you where it is, though.
That's fine. I'll find you.
Ooh. How big
We have-
Costa
we have
Rica
our
be?
ways.
Yeah.
Right? It can't be that big an island, right? We'll figure it out.
Costa Rica's not an island, Matt.
So I'm already off to a good start. I'm already good.
Just so
I'm
you
just-
know.
I'm just trying to make you feel safer than you actually are.
Yeah, I'm feeling really safe as long as you don't know how to fly.
I mean, just
Figured
sneak
that
up
out.
on Matt and then you can just take him
Yeah.
right out.
If you see him, just come up from behind.
Yeah.
Right? I got nothing.
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Matt, hit us with the outro music.
Hey. Uh-oh. I'm all over it. I got this. Becky, thank you so much for your time and your stories, and thank you all for listening, and thank you to Lehigh University Department of Theater for sponsoring this podcast.
Our next show will be Theater XYZ on 27th, a podcast with 3 generations talking about different issues occurring in the world of theater and beyond.
Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Google Podcasts, and Spotify at LU Theater. That's theater ending with an RE at LU Theater Podcast Series. And on YouTube, just search Lehigh University Department of Theater, and there you can find our playlist. Catch you next time.
Bye.
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 That's
I'm gonna
enough.
let it-
That's enough joy.
Can we stop smiling now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Never. That's my
all right.
favorite thing about masks. Yeah, hit stop recording. See what happens.
Yep.